Hey guys, Donnie B Learn Pro Recording, the site that not only shows you how to do the recording, but how to get paid for it. Hey, today I want to talk to you about something that's a little bit boring, but I think it's kind of necessary. It's something that we can all do, especially you guys that are on Pro Tools. Today I want to show you and go through each one of the Pro Tools preferences. Things you should change, things you might want to change, things you don't want to change, and things like that. So before we get going, of course, I've got something free for you. My Studio Growth Formula. Quick PDF. Go grab it, man. It's learnprorecording.com/Studio Growth Formula. This is something that's going to help you build, grow, and scale your studio into something that could possibly sustain and maybe even take over your day job. Hashtag quit your day job. So if you guys are ready to go, let's talk about preferences. Okay guys, today we're going to discuss the preferences of Pro Tools. Preferences are basically how Pro Tools works in the background, the behind the scenes stuff. Again, like everything else in Pro Tools, there's a couple of ways to get this. You can go to Setup, Preferences, or you can go over here to Pro Tools and click Preferences. It opens up this dialog box, and what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about all these tabs, all these little connections and things that you get to change. Should you change some? Yes. Should you not change some? Yes. So there's a lot going on here. We're going to go through each tab and each box, and we're going to talk about what each one is and show you which ones you should change and which ones you should not change. So if you're ready to get going, let's get started. So again, the first thing you want to do is you want to bring up that preferences box. You can go here to Setup, Preferences, or like I said, the other one is Pro Tools Preferences in the Pro Tools menu here. We're going to just open this up. So let's just get started. On the Display tab, that's how things look. The Display tab is how things look. The basics. Track position numbers stay with hidden tracks. What this means is that you can turn on track numbers. You can go here to view and you can actually turn on track numbers. Notice over here on the side now it's track 1, 2, 3, 4. What this thing means in the preferences is that these track numbers are going to stay with any hidden tracks. So you kind of always have an idea of how many tracks you're dealing with, whatever. If you have to know that information, you can just turn that on. When you click OK, it'll initiate that and make it happen. Tooltips, function, and details. What this is like when you mouse over things in Pro Tools, it tells you what it is. Okay, if you mouse over things, it tells you that's the solo, that's the mute, that's the track view selector. That's what those tooltips are. I honestly just leave mine on. It doesn't bother me. You have to leave your mouse there for a second for it to even start working. And honestly, I don't even notice it anymore. So once you get used to it, if you feel like turning that off, by all means, turn that off. The edit window default length. This is the edit window. What we're looking at here is the actual edit window, and the default length is whatever it is. Okay, you can make the default length a certain amount, or you can change it. You can put it whatever it is. This is honestly the default is 00000. I just leave it like that. It's never bothered me. Organize your plugins by category and manufacturer, just the category, or just manufacturer, or a flat list. The default is category. I organize mine by category and manufacturer. And what this means is that when you go look for a plugin, it organizes them by the type, EQ, dynamics, pitch shift, but it also organizes them by the manufacturer. So if you know that your plugin that you were looking for is made by Avid, you can just go here and grab it and turn it on. Okay, so that's all that means. It's just a convenience thing. It makes it easier for you to go find your things. But honestly, that point is kind of moot now because you can just start typing. You start typing reverb. It shows you all the plugins that you have available with the word reverb on it. So it's kind of pointless to do it that way. But you know, old school. I just leave it on category and manufacturer. Organize your track type by width or type and width. I don't change that. The default is type. I just leave it there. You can also change your the basic language that Pro Tools is showing. If you're more comfortable in Spanish or French, whatever, Japanese, you can turn that on. Okay. The UI theme is how it looks. Classic and dark mode. This is dark mode. This is classic mode. I honestly, personally, I have a hard time dealing with dark mode. I've just been on classic mode for so long. That's how, for me, this is how Pro Tools should look, and I just leave it alone. This is the warnings and dialogue box. You can reset it so that it starts all over again if you want to see the warnings and dialogues that you've already seen and cleared. Whatever. I honestly don't ever touch this. It's totally fine. I really want to know if Pro Tools is crashing all the time, and it'll tell you why. Okay, show the dashboard window when Pro Tools starts. Yes, leave that on. It's just kind of convenient that you can go in there and automatically see the sessions that you've been working on. You can select which one you want to. Let's say you want to go back into a session that you worked on yesterday. You can just go back into it when Pro Tools starts up. It's right there. Color coding, the color coding tab in the displays. I don't change this, but you guys are more than welcome to change this however you want it to be. Always display color markers. I think that's defaulted to off. I could be wrong. The markers are memory locations, and as you create memory locations, it will change the color. So if you add a memory location, it changes the color again. So you can kind of see your memory locations straight away. Makes life really simple and way more organized. All these things are going to do is help you get faster and help you get better. Okay, so I don't change any of this. This is the default. I never change it. You can, like I said, you can if you want. Every time you make a clip or every time you make a new track, you want that new track to be read, you can do that. It's honestly up to you. This is your preferences on how your Pro Tools runs on your system. So make it yours. Make it do what you need it to do. Okay, the next tab we're going to look at is the operation. The transport. And the transport is making Pro Tools go. Stop, start, fast forward, rewind, record, that kind of thing. A lot of these sections right here, edit, insertion, follows, scrub, audio during fast forward. A lot of these you can change on the fly with these tool sets up here. So I honestly don't change these here. If I do need to change it, I will turn it on up here if I need it when I need it. That's just the thing. But if you always want it on there every time you open up Pro Tools, then turn it on. That's totally fine. Custom shuttle lock speed. I don't change these. These are the default. Shuttle lock means that when you go into fast forward or rewind, it plays back at a certain speed. You can change that if you like. It's totally fine. Numeric keyboard. If you guys have a numeric keyboard, that's the part of the keyboard that's over on the right that has all the numbers. If you're on a laptop, you may not have one of those. I leave mine, the default is the transport. So what this means is that 0 on the numeric keyboard is start and stop. 3 is record, 1 is rewind, 2 is fast forward. You kind of don't have to move your hand too much, and all you're moving around and transport are right there at your fingertips. So I do leave mine on that. That is the default, and I leave that there. Auto backup. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure this is enabled. You will be using this. Pro Tools is pretty much known to crash a couple of times per day, at least. I honestly feel like if Pro Tools does not crash during the day, that something is absolutely wrong with it. So you will be going to session file backups. This will save your job sometimes, so make sure this is turned on. The default is keep the 10 most recent sessions and back it up every 5 minutes. You can make this 99 and 1, so it keeps the 99 most recent session backups and it backs it up every 1 minute. I have found in my travels that the 10 and 5 are perfect. You know, the most you're going to lose at any given moment is 4 minutes and 59 seconds of work. But that's pretty hard to do. Generally, the backups are pretty close to right where you left off. What this means is that you can go, if you have not been saving your session, you can go back and open up a session file backup, which is an automatic backup. It saves automatically every 5 minutes for the last 10 sessions, and it overwrites the 11th one. Okay, so that's what that means. Okay, continuing on down this row, user media and settings location. Do not, under any circumstances, change this. This is where Pro Tools keeps all its stuff. Pro Tools knows where things are because your sound libraries, your project media, this is where Pro Tools is keeping everything. Try not to change this. This is where Pro Tools likes to put things. You can change it, of course, but then you might confuse Pro Tools even more than it already is confused. Okay, moving on, the record section. I do change this to cancel on all audio tracks. What record enable buttons? All right, let me explain what this means. This is kind of important. Okay, so what this means is that if you record enable one track and then you go down here and you record enable another track, it cancels the previous track. Now this is going to come in real handy if you've got these tracks, if you've got a lot of tracks built up, or you got your tracks really big and you have one track record enabled and you go down here and you record enable another track. Okay, now you basically have two tracks record enabled. So when you go to record, it's not only recording on the one track that you're looking at, but it's also recording on the other track that you could not see. So what you want to do is you want to make sure you turn that off so that it is not so that it cancels the other one. So when you do record enable one, it cancels the other one. Now, if you do need to record more than one at a time, what you can do is you can hold down Shift and click the other record buttons, and then they work properly. So there you go. So link, record, and play faders. Yes, please leave that on. The record and play faders are over here. If you look at your mixer, the record, and this is the play fader, and when you record enable it, it just turns red and becomes the same fader. The same fader is the record fader and the play fader. There you go. Enable automation in record. That's up to you. If you want to be able to write automation while you're actually recording, that's totally fine. I honestly don't do that. I find it just kind of gets in the way, so I honestly don't do that. Disable input when disarming tracks in stop. Yes, please make sure that is turned on. What that means is that when you've got the track input selector and you click record and then you record something on that track, when you press stop, they both go away. So when you unrecord one, it turns off the other. That's all that means. So yeah, leave that on because you might need that. You don't want to leave anything track initialized if you if you turn the record off. So yeah, leave that on. Mute record on tracks while stopped. Yeah, I don't. That's the default. I don't unmute. It doesn't matter. That doesn't get my way. This is really important. This is a fun one to keep on. If you guys are, especially if you guys are working in post production doing dialogue replacement, or you know what's really cool about this one is that if you turn this on, automatically create a new playlist when loop recording. This is great if you're a solo artist and you're engineering yourself. You can basically turn your system on loop record and you can go into the booth. Okay, let's do that. Let's turn this on to loop record. We'll turn it. See, now they got the little arrow running around the record button there. So if I turn this on, and let's go to the mic in, if I turn this on and I do record on this, let me record this. I'm just going to let this loop a couple of times. So there we go. So it's going to loop there. It's going to loop again, loop again. Imagine this is the entire hook, okay, of the chorus of the song. We go into the booth, we turn it on, we go into the booth, and we sing the chorus 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 times, or whatever, okay? When we get done, when we look at this, now we can go over here to the playlist, and it has automatically made playlists that we can actually pull the best bits from. And we talk about this a little bit later, the comping from playlisting and that kind of thing. So this automatically creates a new playlist when you do go into loop recording. So that's a pretty decent thing to leave turned on. Do turn that on. I think it defaults to the off, but turn it on. Online options, that has to do with video recording. We're not doing any video recording. We're not dealing with any video right now, so let's just leave that on the defaulted. Record online, a time code, or ADAT lock, whatever. That is the default. Just leave that on. Miscellaneous. Mouse wheel scrolling snaps to track. I just leave that on. That's the default. Video. If you're dealing with video, it'll automatically turn it on. This is the default, so it's always on anyway. So if you're not dealing with video, it doesn't matter. It won't. Pro Tools won't even show it to you. Diagnostics, yeah, I don't change any of this. I just leave it the way it is. So these don't. You can save the logs if you want. You know, when it does have an error, you can actually save the logs, and this is showing you. This is telling you where you're going to save the logs. That's all. So you can also reset the logging stuff. So a lot of times, if it saves a log, it won't show you the log again because it had already given you one, but you can reset them. There you go. Okay, let's move on to the editing tab next. Clips. Clips are actually the name of the pieces of audio in your session. all of these things, like this is a clip right here, this thing right here. So those are clips. So that's what we're talking about here with the clips tab. So clip list selection follows edit. Yeah, leave that on. Edit selection follows clip list. Yeah, leave that on. Auto name separated clips. Yes, leave that on. These other things I do not turn on. I just leave on the first. This is the default, by the way, the first three. So leave that on. What this means is that you have a list over here of your clips. These are all your clips, right? And what you can do is when you select this, it also selects over here in your clip list. Or if you select in your clip list, it also selects in your edit window. That's all it means. So yes, leave those on. Those are awesome and they work great. And it's way a lot more convenient to see everything when you need to see everything. When you get into advanced things, when you get a little bit more advanced into Pro Tools, separate clip operates on all related takes. You might want to do that. Let's say you've got like this scenario here where we added all these all the playlists over here, right? If you separate one, it'll separate all of them. So yeah, these are advanced editing tools, which you might get into using later on, but right now just leave them. Send fully overlapped clips to available playlist. When you overlap clips, you can see one underneath, and you don't really need to send it to another list while you're editing. Just leave those turned off. Clip gain nudge value. Yeah, you can nudge. Clip gain is how loud the actual clip is. You can. This is the default 0.5 dB. I just leave it there. 1 through 5 number keys control. It's normally set up on zoom presets. So if you hit the number 1 on your keyboard, it's one zoom. Number 2 is another zoom. I just leave it on that. I don't change it. You can change it to clip effects if you want. I don't deal with clip effects at the moment, so I just leave that in default. Tracks. New tracks default to tick time based. No, don't turn that on unless you're strictly dealing with MIDI. Tick time based is MIDI. Otherwise, we're dealing with sample based, so leave that alone. Suppress name dialog when creating new playlist. No, leave that off. Just these are all the defaults, by the way. Show target playlist after sending clip selection. Nah, I don't change any of that. Memory locations. Auto name, no. Recall memory location selection at original track. Yes, please leave that on. Fades. This is a good one. Let's talk about this for a sec. Okay, what a fade is. You got a fade in, a fade out, and a crossfade on each individual clip. You can actually have this be, so every time you do a fade in, you want it to look like that, okay? You can set these up, especially if it's just you working on your system. My problem with this information right here is that none of these preferences are able to be saved separately. I really wish Avid would come up with a system that we could so we could save Pro Tools preferences depending on who's using Pro Tools at the moment. We are a commercial studio, and a lot of engineers come in here and they'll change the fade in to be the fade in that they like all the time. They'll change the fade out to be the fade out that they like all the time, etc., etc. The thing is that they don't change it back when they leave. So next time I get on the system and I want to use a fade in, I have to stop and go change it and fix it in the preferences, which really kind of gets in the way. And it really just kind of, it kind of just aggravates a little bit that Pro Tools, Avid doesn't give us a way to save preferences per user. There is a workaround for that. You can create a new user on your computer, and every time somebody loads up their Pro Tools, it comes in with their, every time a user loads up his system on your computer, it installs his preferences or her preferences or what have you. So I personally don't like to change these, okay? If I do need to change a fade when I'm actually editing, like if I go in here and I add a fade on this thing right here, I can also change the fade here. I can change it like this. I can double click on it. I could change it here. Either way, it's easier for me to do it that way than it is to have to go into my preferences, change it to the way I want it. It's not always going to be the same. If I want a fade to be real quick and then last longer, I'll do it when I need it. Zoom toggle, I don't change any of these. These are just the zooming in and out, that kind of thing. These are the defaults. I just leave them like that. Smart tool fade adjustment, I forgot to talk about that. Smart Tool Fade Adjustment, I do leave that on. I just leave it on all the time because it's there. You can actually add where you have to hold down the command key to make it work, but I just leave mine on. Levels of undo, 64 is the max. Leave it on 64. Totally fine. No reason to change that. Moving on. Okay, so here we are on the mixing tab. First thing we have here is a setup for the mixing. The first thing here is sends default to 0 dB. This actually you can change to be whatever. You can make, let's say that every time you create a send, you want it to be at minus 18 dB. You just put in minus 18. That can be kind of dangerous. I would just leave this off, because then what happens if you leave this off is that when you create a send, it creates the fader at infinity, meaning all the way off. Just leave that like that. You can kind of get dangerous. Let's say that you inadvertently, instead of making it a bus output, you make it a physical output, and then you have a microphone connected to that input. You can create a feedback loop. That feedback loop will be at 0 dB, which is loud, and then you might blow tweeters. So I would just leave it at, I would leave that off if I were you. Send pans default to follow main. No, I might want my sends to pan a little differently than my mains. Use absolute pan linking. No, I don't normally do that. Allow sends to persist during LLM is a low latency monitoring, in case we care. This will allow your plugins and your sends to continue even though you work in low latency mode. Low latency mode is that it's supposed to turn off all your plugins. That's how it creates low latency. So if you have this turned on, you might not be creating the low latency mode that you think you're going to be creating. Your default EQ and default dynamics, you can basically pick which one you like. This is my favorite EQ. I mean, honestly, the one that comes with Pro Tools is one of my favorites. Again, one of my favorite compressors to use, real quick, is the Pro Compressor, which comes with Pro Tools, by the way. So what this means is that when you have those two selected and you go to select a plugin, though your two favorites are right here on the top. You can just grab your EQ, you can just grab your compressor real quick, boom, you're good to go. Okay, right next door to that, we have controllers. I personally don't use a controller, so I leave this as defaulted. For you guys that do have controllers, you can set some parameters for every time you start up your controllers, like follows bank selection. That's if you bank, like say your controller only has 8 channels that it's showing at a time, you can bank over and that kind of thing. But you guys with controllers will know what this is, and you'll know when to fill it out. Okay. Automation. Again, I just leave everything defaulted here on my automation. It seems to work fine. If I need to change something, I can change it on the fly when I actually do that. So I actually don't change any of this I don't change any of this at all. So there you go. Delay compensation. Yes, you do want to make sure that compensate side chains is on. Make sure that's turned on in case it's not, and you do want a time mode to your samples, not milliseconds. That way everything stays together and everything stays in sync. Routing coefficients, this is more for post-production stuff. If you're going to fold down from a 5.1 to a stereo, you're going to want that. Your 5.1, which way your 5.1 is working. Your 7.1 is a down mixing to 5.1 or stereo. If you're not working in post-production and mixing in 5.1 or 7.1, don't change any of this. I honestly don't change it anyway, so I just leave this alone. Okay, moving on to the metering tab. I don't change any of the track and master meter types. I like the ones that the default in Pro Tools, which is the digital VU. I like those. You guys can investigate and see which ones you like best, which one you like for your master fader, which ones you like, whatever. You guys can just choose those. Right next door to that, we have advanced meter types. Again, this is the default. You can change it if you like. You can also change where the color breaks. You can change where the color breaks low, the color breaks high. That's the different colors here in the meter. Like when it gets up near the top, it's yellow, then it turns orange, then it turns red. You can change those. You can always reset it back to the default, which is this one. Peak clips. Yes, do turn this on. The clip indication. What that means is if your track does clip during tracking, it will turn red. If it's on infinite, it will stay red until you take the time to go change it. But you have to take the time to go change it. I select 3 seconds. I can see the clip. In 3 seconds, it goes away. I don't have to stop doing what I'm doing and go clear clips. The red light turning on, okay? Display, I don't change any of this. This is the default. I do like to see the compressor limiter. That's this extra little meter thing here. When you guys turn this on, it's that extra little meter thing right there. It shows you at a glance what your compressor's doing without having to open up your compressor. You can also turn that on to expanders and gates, priority compressor limiters. I just leave it on the default. It seems to work fine for me. Okay, the next tab we're going to be dealing with is processing. Audio suite. We haven't discussed this yet, but we're going to discuss the different types of plugins, basically, what it is. A default handle length. Let me explain what this is real quick, because this does sometimes get a little confusing. Basically, you want to leave it at the default of 2 seconds, which is totally fine. Okay, let me explain what this is. So what this means is that if we have a piece of audio, all right, let me just create a piece of audio here real quick. If I have a piece of audio, okay, and I want to change this piece of audio using an Audio Suite plugin. So look, I can actually insert a plugin on here, and as I press play, that plugin is going to process whatever is processing on this piece of audio. But if I use Audio Suite, okay, let's just use the same EQ. If I use the Audio Suite, I have to render this. Okay, so let's make a change. We'll make this a little bit different. And then when I render it, it's going to add 2 seconds to either end, which is called the handle, which means that I could pull this handle out and all of that is actually EQ'd as well. So there was no audio there, so it's not going to do anything, but that's what it is. It gives you a little bit of room that you can pull out, actually gives you 2 seconds on either end that you can pull out, and that is what is your handle. So back to the preferences. Yeah, make sure you just leave that at the default 2 seconds. Right next door to that, we have the TCE tool, time compression expansion. Now, there are other tools that you can get that do this same thing. You might have bought a third-party time compression expansion tool. You can change it here. For me, the Avid time shift works fine. It's not a big deal, and I do leave it on the factory default setting where I don't have to do that. So in other words, when you bring it up, you could change it to be any preset that you already like. Okay, when you're importing, yes, convert convert imported WAV files to, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, man. WAV file's a WAV file. If you can get if you want to get real picky and you want to make it the broadcast wave, you can just click that, turn it on. Automatically file copies on import. Yes, you want to turn that on. Let me explain why you might want to turn that on. So let's say the client brings you a session. He's got all his stems on his drive, and he brings you the drive, plugs in the drive. You actually import audio from his drive into one of your sessions, and now you're going to record vocals on it. Okay, and then when the client leaves, he's probably going to take his drive with him, and he's going to leave. He wants you to mix this. Let's say he wants you to mix the song after he's recorded it. Okay, but you did not have this turned on. So when you brought the files into your session, it did not automatically copy those files into your hard drive or onto your hard drive, into the folder that you specified. Okay, so you did not have this turned on, and the client leaves, he takes his hard drive with him. So that night you want to open up the session and start working on it, to start working on the mix. Boom, you don't have any of the audio files there, so you're not mixing anything. You're gonna have to call the client, have him send you the files, or bring you the drive back so you can copy them in. Just make sure that's turned on, okay? Convert copy files to session format. Yes, might as well leave that on. Let's say that your format is 24-bit 48K and you're dealing with 24-bit 48K, 32-bit 48K, whatever, 44.1, and the file that you're converting is a different format. It will convert it on the way in. So yeah, leave that on, okay? Don't convert the sample rate. You don't need that turned on. You don't want to turn that on. You do want it to convert it to the sample rate, because when you start mixing sample rates in a session is when you start having problems. One file is going to run slow, one file is going to run fast, what have you. Import Rex files. If you're dealing with Reason as a production tool, you know what Rex files are. That's where they come from. So yeah, if you want to import Rex files as clip groups, you can turn that on. If you guys that are dealing with Reason, you can turn that on. Drag and drop from computer conforms to session tempo. Yes, you could say all files or Rex and Acid only. I might put this on Rex files, or I might put this on all files. Sorry. That way, when you drag and drop a file in, it's going to conform it to the session tempo. I would normally just leave this here, not even touch it. Just leave it on default. It's pretty rare that you're dealing with Rex and Acid files. Acid files come from another DAW by Sony called Sony Acid. When you bring those in, they have a special algorithm involved with them that allows you to change the tempo on the fly with these audio files. Sample rate conversion quality, just leave it on the tweak head, which is the slowest. You want the best of the best. Okay. Commit. This is one of those sections that you need to change. Change it to follow session settings, because the default is always use 32. But what if you're working in a 24-bit session? You don't want to be mixing bit depths in one session. So if you commit a file, if you're working in a 24-bit session and you commit a file, it's going to always use 32-bit. No. If you're working in a 32-bit session, yes, you might want that, but you want to have that on. If you're working in a 24-bit session, you want it to convert it at 24-bit, so you're not mixing bit depths. Okay, so Elastic Audio, again, polyphonic is the default. Just leave it there. That's perfect. We talk more about Elastic Audio in a later lesson. DSP management. Some of us don't have Heat. Some of us do. Some of us don't use Heat. Heat is a plugin which kind of warms up your audio. That's what it does. I personally don't use it. I never have used it, and I don't plan to use it, so I never turn that on. Celemony ARA. What this means, Celemony are the people that make Melodyne, okay? Now, all this means is that time is connected between Pro Tools and your Melodyne that you open up. We all have access to Melodyne. Melodyne comes with Pro Tools now. Melodyne is a pitch correction software similar to Auto-Tune, but not Auto-Tune. It works in post-production where Auto-Tune works in real time on the way in. This just allows the time, if you select here in Pro Tools or you select over here in Pro Tools, that will follow in your Celemony, in your Melodyne. That's what that is. So just that, this is the default. There's no other selection. Just leave that on. All right, miscellaneous, parallel task operations, just leave this on. Just leave this on high. You want that to be the best optimization that you can get. Let's look at MIDI. I honestly don't change any of the MIDI, anything in MIDI, basics or note displays. I don't change any of this. These are all the defaults. Pro Tools is pretty weak in the MIDI editing department. If I need to do stuff with MIDI, I actually go to Logic, and I use Logic for that. When we're producing music, we're generally using MIDI. I might be in Logic or Ableton or Luna or some other DAW other than Pro Tools. So I don't really do anything with MIDI in Pro Tools. But if I do, it's pretty simple and pretty easy, and I just leave it as the default. The collaboration. Collaboration is, if you notice when you went to start a new session and create new, and you have the choice of recent projects, or create a new session, open a recent session, or start a project. A project is a collaboration. Now, basically what this means is that when you create the session, it's going to create that session on the cloud, and you can give other people access to the session via the cloud. Let's say you and your friend are working on a song. Your friend lives in Colorado, you live in Florida. You guys can work on the song at the same time, and that's collaboration. Okay, so you actually have access to storage devices on the cloud. As the default, you don't get very much space, but you can buy more space on the on your Avid access. I don't change any of these things. I don't. New tracks are shared. First invite shares all tracks. I just leave these as default. Basically, what this means is that when you start a session, you're on the cloud. Your friend can open it. If you do something to the session and save it, it automatically saves to the cloud. Your friend automatically sees what you've done. So that's what it is. And it's a great tool. I mean, collabing with somebody from around the world is awesome and fun. And this makes it pretty easy and set up and ready to go. Synchronization. If you are not connecting to a machine, there are ways to connect Pro Tools to a tape machine, a video deck, this kind of thing. You can have the machine chase Pro Tools or have Pro Tools chase the machine. If you're not dealing with post-production syncing things, don't worry about these things. So when you click OK, all of these changes that you made to your preferences are now going to be initialized. Next time you start up Pro Tools, it will have the new preferences that you've changed involved, and you can move on and do things the way that you want to do things. Let me explain a way to reset your preferences if you ever have to. Okay, look, sometimes Pro Tools gets stuck, and sometimes Pro Tools just it's crashing all the time. Every time you try to do a certain thing, it crashes. This might mean that some of your preferences are stuck or some of your preferences have corrupted and they're getting in the way. And what you need to do is basically delete all your preferences and start over. It's the same thing as uninstalling and reinstalling the program. It's basically, or the app, Pro Tools. It's like you're going to reinitialize or reinstall Pro Tools like it's brand new, like it's fresh, okay? Because sometimes, like I said, sometimes your preferences get stuck or something gets in the way, something gets corrupted. You have to reset. You have to basically delete and restart your program. But all you have to do really is delete some of your preferences. Now, you guys that are on a PC, you probably should go to Google on how to delete your preferences in Pro Tools on a PC. You guys that are on Mac, fortunately, there's a guy that has made an app which is available as a free download, and it is called PT Prefs. If you look at my application folder here, we have PT Prefs by Pete Gates. If you guys go to PeteGates.com, you can download this, and basically what you're going to do is you're going to trash all these files, all these things, all at the same time. It doesn't trash any of your data files. It doesn't trash any of your any other file. The only thing that it trashes are the preferences in Pro Tools. Again, it's just like starting Pro Tools completely fresh, like you just installed it, and then you can go back to your preferences and change the things that you normally change, like, for instance, changing the things, making sure that file backups are on, changing the editing tabs, changing the display tabs, change it to category manufacturer. Let's say you like working in dark mode, you change it back to dark mode real quick, so on and so on and so on. Again, I'll put a link in this thing. I'll put a link here to show you how to get to PeteGates.com so you can download your PT Prefs. Pete Gates actually has a couple of different apps that you can download for free from his site that are really helpful in Pro Tools. But PT Prefs by Pete Gates is probably the more mostly used. I use it. I honestly use it once a week. We're a commercial studio, so every Monday at our studio, I go in and clean out the preferences on all the systems. I don't know if anybody's changed anything or they've corrupted anything or moved anything around. I just make it a point on Mondays. Monday's is maintenance day. So I go through and first thing I do is clean out the computers, clean out the prefs, start completely over. So hopefully this helps you guys out. Hopefully you guys have a little bit better understanding about the preferences in Pro Tools. You can always reach out. So happy mixing, everybody. We'll see you on the next one.